After an epic playoff opener to get the 2025 One-Up Turbo Truck Series postseason underway, we head out west for race number 2 at Carbondale Raceway, a beautiful 3-turned, 0.8 of a mile short track that we've never been to in One-Up competition, but I'm expecting a good race from everybody involved as we get the Turbo Truck Series playoffs in full swing. And alongside me in the booth to bring you the action for this week's race is James Ellison with us this week for a good truck race. And like I said, we've never been to this track before, but I have a feeling based on what we've seen in practice and qualifying so far that this is going to put on a good show for us.
Oh, absolutely. And, another new venue for one-up competition. This is going to be real interesting to see how these truck drivers handle this course. And, 3 turns, like they say at Pocono, what turn for? But, it's being a playoff race is certainly going to make it interesting because there's the factor of not knowing exactly what the racing conditions will be like going into a race where you've got a bunch of drivers that are vying for a championship. You certainly have a lot of things to play at here. Not to mention, there's still always the possibility of so many unknowns.
It's going to be interesting to watch because these guys have never done full race conditions at this track before. They've only done their simulations in practice and a qualifying lap all by themselves. But this will be the first time we have all 42 of them at pure racing speed on track at the same time. It's going to be a lot of fun to see who handles it the best over the next 78 laps here this afternoon. A quick look at the playoff standings going into this weekend. Paul Villalobos has a slim advantage in the playoff standings by 5 points over the Darlington winner, DJ Curtis, who, if you remember, stole that win on the final lap of the race from a very fast Blaine Saylor, who is 16 points out of the lead as it stands right now in 4th position, tied with AF Walsh for 3rd. But considering all 10 of our playoff drivers are still within 35 points of the lead, no one's out of it quite yet.
Well, absolutely. You got to look at all of them. You got to go all the way to Justin Whitmer, and all these drivers, they get into playoff contention by being slouches. They put their hard work in. You just talked about it. DJ Curtis, and Blaine Saylor, they were fast at Darlington. Unfortunately for Saylor, the heartbreak came when Curtis was able to prove that his truck was fastest in that final lap, and stole the win. But it's still going to be interesting to see how this plays out. Who of these 10 drivers could surprise us and continue to be a contender, and who of those who have been good all year are going to be the ones that we'll be expecting to see at the top come to Homestead.
Absolutely. Well said in that regard. As we can now bring you the full starting lineup for today's racing action here at Carbondale, all 78 laps of it. And Curtis Stevenson, we talked about him. He's been quietly fast all season long. He's come close to several wins on so many occasions. He gets another pole position to add to his resume. And Cal Farrell in the Seismic Motorsports 01, a 3rd entry for that organization, trying to get it ready for 2026. He's put that truck on the outside of the front row, and right behind him, his teammate Alexander Rowe in the 61. Those two, I feel, could be in prime position to play playoff spoilers today, with John McFadden and Blaine Saylor, we already talked about, lining up 3rd and 5th, respectively. But we've got a very playoff-stacked front end of the grid. All 10 of our playoff drivers have qualified in the top 15 this week. So a mistake from any one of them could be very costly indeed.
Absolutely, and as I mentioned, the unknowns of this track being new to the entire circuit, it's going to be real interesting to see how this plays out. Who's going to have the opportunity to do it? Can Curtis Stevenson finally close on that first win and keep himself in the discussion for championship, or will we see our normal expected championship contenders like Villalobos, like Curtis, or will we even see a spoiler because we got a few non-playoff contenders in the top 10 and a few really strong ones just outside the top 15 who could really shake things up.
We're going to get the answers to those questions and more over the course of the next 78 laps this evening. So with that being said, we've got all 42 trucks on the grid ready to go racing, and we're ready to bring you that action now. It's the 1UP Turbo Truck Series playoffs from Carbondale Raceway, and the green flag getting set to get this great race underway. Stay tuned, don't want to miss a second of any of the heart-pounding action set to unfold over the next 78 laps. A venture into the unknown as we take on 78 laps at Carbondale Raceway. Stevenson and Farrell on the front row. The pace truck's already on pit road. The green flag's already in the air, and we're underway at Carbondale for 78 laps. And Stevenson gets a good run into turn one. He's got Cal Farrell on the way outside of the racetrack. But John McFadden trying to see if he can sneak a look down into turn two. Sure enough, that's exactly what he's doing. The 98's going to dive it into the inside as we head to complete the first lap.
Yeah, and you see Farrell had to back out there. That was not what he wanted to do, but he wasn't going to take a chance with so many unknowns on this course, especially this early in.
But how about John McFadden from third on the grid? He leads the opening lap as we've already got a crash on the front straightaway to put us under the caution flag, and it looks like it's Jeremy Frey, Joshua Warren involved in that one. It's going to be a drag race back to the yellow flag to see which of these two will get the lead. Looks like the 98 will hold on to it, but an early caution here at Carbondale on lap number 3. Not what we wanted to see, but something that we perhaps could have seen coming.
Yeah, it's unfortunate for Frey because he was outperforming the expectations of that truck throughout a good chunk of the year and came up just short of making the playoffs like several others around him in the points. But it looks like he'll be able to continue, so that's a positive at least.
Yeah, and here you see a bunch of trucks just sorting out their running order positions at the moment. Everybody's just getting that sorted out real quick. We're under our first caution of the day. With John McFadden, though, I'm still very impressed with what he was able to do to come from third on the grid to lead the race on the opening lap. He's led them all so far, and he is going to have a good advantage over Curtis Stevenson now, especially now. That's going to be a single file restart when we get to that.
Yeah, he'll be able to take off unless Stevenson says, no, you don't, which we'll see soon enough. But it's going to be real interesting to see as they continue to sort things out back here.
And we'll, of course, get your replays of what happened as well. That should be in a short moment here. So they were running, oh yeah, they were 3 wide. There's Ludovic Charette on the bottom, Warren in the middle. Oh yeah, the 31 gave him a little less room than they needed to complete the corner. And that sends the 88 and the 93 up and into the outside wall. Their damage is relatively minor, and they should be able to continue on without a problem. The problem they do have now is that all of their track position, what little they had, is gone now.
Yeah, it's unfortunate what we saw there, but it's things like that can happen at a track like this. It's not what you want. It's certainly not what the two involved wanted, and I'm pretty sure Charette's gotten on the radio and asked the crew to reach out to apologize to those who were involved, but we'll move on and see how things go from here.
Yep, and we're cycling under caution here. We should be going back racing about lap 7 of this race. McFadden has led every lap so far from third position on the grid. Curtis Stevenson, the pole sitter, running in second position ahead of Cal Farrell. Alexander Rowe in 4th spot. So Seismic Motorsports still holding a solid presence in the top 5 with 2 of their trucks. And Francois Chastain, he started down in 7th spot. He currently completes the top 5 as they run.
Yeah, Chastain's looking for a good run. He's had several so far, but being a playoff contender himself, that's going to need to be the name of the game. Even in a new track, you gotta overcome the unknowns and do the best you can as we get ready to take the one to go here, as far as I can tell.
Well, we're going to look at the pace truck here. Yes, the lights do go out on it, so we will be going green next time they cross the start-finish line, which will be at lap number 7. And John McFadden, we'll see what he can do now that he's got no opposition out front. Got a lot of playoff drivers, though, lurking in the back half of the top 10. And if they can get a few more positions under their belts, that'll be really good for their points advantage, especially the 66. He started in 6th place in this race, did Paul Villalobos, but he's already dropped back 3 places.
And that's not horrible, but it's also not entirely indicative of what he's been doing all season. Been very consistent, been finishing in very good positions, but right now with the points positioning being so close as we get ready to take the green again, he cannot afford to lose too many positions if he wants to control the playoffs.
Especially not to DJ Curtis, who's 2 spots up ahead of him. But we're back under green. McFadden leads, Stevenson second, and it looks as though the 98 has things for the most part under control on this restart. He will lead the field out of turn 2, mostly single file still through the first half of the lap after the restart. But here's Blaine Saylor going to try and make a move on Francois Chastain for 5th spot. This 08, we talked about it with me and Ryan Griffin. We talked about it last week. Stevenson and Saylor, these are the 2 guys we feel that if they can get the ball rolling, get some wins under their belts, they could be serious underdog challengers for the championship.
Oh, absolutely. And you know he wants so bad to make up for what happened at Darlington. And he did nothing wrong. That was just a matter of who had a better truck on that final lap. And we know how that went, but that doesn't mean that Saylor can't do something here.
Absolutely, he's already he started this race in 5th spot. He's only lost 1 spot in the opening exchanges, so he's still in a really good position. But Chastain needs to make something happen as well. He entered this race minus 24 points to the lead, in 8th place in the playoffs, and speaking of guys that really need good runs, Justin Whitmer in the 91 did not have a good opener to the playoffs, finished, I believe, lowest of the playoff contenders, and is now in a 35-point hole going into this race, and he's now under fire from the 13 of Darren Mills for the final spot in the top 10.
And he needs to watch out as well, because if he can't get a spot between himself over there with Mills, he's got Andre Anzac there now, and if he keeps fighting these 2, that'll put Rhodes, Gray, and a few others could easily catch up to him. So he's got to defend and hold his position.
And meanwhile, Cal Farrell's taking the initiative on Curtis Stevenson. He doesn't really care about the championship fight. He's just here to gain experience for next year. And the 01 is now back up in the 2nd place, making the pass on Curtis Stevenson, cementing the 01 now into a solid 2nd place.
And like you said, there are several drivers here. The championship is either no longer a factor, or in the case of Farrell, never is a factor, because he's just getting experience for next year, like you said. And the others, they're just trying to do what they can to finish out the season strong. Like Gray, he finished. He didn't have a chance at the playoffs like he wanted. Well, he did, but it went up in smoke, unfortunately. But the goal I gave him, and I'm sure a lot of other team owners and crew chiefs have given their drivers who didn't get to make the playoffs: go win races, play spoiler, do what you can to have a good result, and we'll try again next year. So, and as we talk about next year, well, let's going back to this year. We got a lot going on right now, even though everybody seems single file.
Yeah, and Whitmer's actually fallen out of the top 10 entirely. He's down to 12th position. But going, as we see a little further back, Chastain's going to try and make a move on Alexander Rowe in the 61. That is for the 4th spot. And DJ Curtis, he's always a contender no matter what track we go to, no matter what circumstance he's in. He always seems to find a way to the front of the field, and he's doing that right now. The problem is laying on the shoulders of Paul Villalobos, because he is now down in about 9th position, and if Curtis continues to make gains on the rest of the field, I'm not so sure that points lead is safe anymore.
Well, absolutely, because like you said, if Villalobos keeps falling, that is going to certainly play into the hands of everyone behind him, because we talked about it, only 35 points separating 1st to 10th in the playoffs, and that's still a pretty slim margin. So if something happens to Villalobos here, that could really start to put things wide open, at least for a couple of races.
Meanwhile, Blaine Saylor has found his way past Alexander Rowe to move up into the top 5, which is a great position for the 08 to be in. It'd be his second straight top 5 to open the playoffs with. But yeah, Villalobos, we're looking at him right now. Started 6th, drifted back to 9th in the opening few laps, and he has pretty much been stuck there ever since. He's under fire from Darren Mills. Whitmer's going to try and make a move back on Anzac for 11th spot. The 66 is in a pretty precarious position as it stands.
Yeah, but the good news is, even if the 13 of Mills were to get by him, there's still a gap back to Anzac and Whitmer to worry about getting past. But it's not a good place to be in when some of your closest competitors for the championship are in positions ahead of you.
And especially when you've got a guy like John McFadden absolutely dominating this race. He's led the opening 19 laps, and now he's got an over second lead over the rest of the field. As AF Walsh now makes a move on his teammate Curtis. This is for the 7th position, and that's put Villalobos into the high line as well, and that's opened the door for Darren Mills to try and take that spot away. And Whitmer's right there as well.
And you see Anzac could play a factor here with these guys side by side here. And several others back there. I noticed the Rhodes Gray has dropped back, but there's still a good line of trucks, no matter who they are, who could easily put Villalobos in a very bad position.
And that's exactly the position they're putting him in. He's now fallen outside the top 10 completely, has the 66. This is a bit of an uncharted territory for him. He's finished top 10 in all but a couple races this season, and now he's in danger of losing that, as he's already fallen out of the top 10, and this pass from Anzac in the 83 will put the 66 down into the 12th position.
And you got some trouble right there with the 9. You got Derek Petty right there. They're trying to put some there, and Villalobos something. Now he's found a spot. For a little bit there, it looked like he wasn't actually having a spot, but he was able to make something of it.
Well, at least he's able to hang in there and just ride it out, see if there's anything going on with that truck, and if there's a way for them to rectify it. But he's gone high again, and that might open the door for Petty once again. Although what I think he's trying to do, he's trying to get Curtis to stay up into that high line, force him into some mistakes, and get past the 22, because at least then his closest challenger for the championship is now behind him instead of directly up ahead of him.
That's what he wants, but you can't always get what you want. We've seen it plenty of times, whether in championship battles and just in an ordinary race. You don't always get what you want, and unfortunately, Villalobos is definitely not getting what he wants right now.
Yeah, he's under fire from the 9. Petty has passed him. Lee Muse in the 16. Granted, this 16 team's having a pretty solid day in the top 15, along with his 2 teammates in the top 10. Pretty solid day at the office overall for Seismic Motorsports. But for the 66 truck, they have got to get this thing tuned up properly to make a charge back towards the front, because he is now in a really tough position, because as things run right now, he would lose the championship lead to, I believe, the 98, who's been out in the command of this race. He's led every lap so far, and now he's got a 2-second lead over everyone else.
Yeah, that's not what you want when your name is not like Faden. But it's really nice to see him have a good run like this, even though he hasn't had a terrible season like so many of these playoff contenders. The seasons haven't been terrible, otherwise they wouldn't be here. But right now, I'd imagine they are feeling a little bit terrible that he's running off on them right now.
Yeah, and right now, and notice Francois Chastain's made the pass on Cal Farrell, as has Curtis Stevenson, to knock the 01 down the 4th spot and move the 6 and the 1 up into 2nd and 3rd. But these guys, they've got their work cut out for them to try and catch John McFadden, because he is 2.2 seconds up the road from these guys, and that's not a gap you can make up in a pretty short amount of time. That's going to take a while.
Yeah, the only thing that's going to erase that is a caution at this point, but You know that word is a swear word in McFadden's vocabulary right now.
Well, the thing about it is these guys are now strung out enough to where a caution's less and less likely, but the thing about it is I'm noticing that McFadden is slowly but surely catching the back of the field. If he gets close enough to them to try and put some cars a lap down, that could bring the 6 and the 1 right back to him in a pretty short order.
Yeah, we've seen it plenty of times before. Tracks like this, short tracks, are definitely a place where lap traffic could be an equalizer for the leader versus the field.
And meanwhile, Blaine Saylor did make a pass on Cal Farrell for a 4th spot, but Farrell's going to try and get back past him in the running order as Paul Villalobos continues to sink through the field. He's almost back to where Santi Messi is. Messi, currently in the 3, is the lowest or second lowest ranked of our playoff challengers. Villalobos, 8th highest of our 10 playoff drivers. He is in a big spot of danger right here, because as they run right now, he would fall out of that points lead that he has had pretty much since the start of the season.
And you see Samantha Jade there getting by that. Well, that's a pretty good run for Jade. Started 23rd, not gaining too many spots, but
she gained 10 since the start of the race, up to 13.
Wow, so that's okay. So definitely having a pretty good day, but I think Villalobos has a little bit of a gap between himself and Petty and Messi back there, and see a little bit of fight back there behind them. So they get side by side between the 4 trucks back there. He might have a little bit of a relief.
And he's going to need it because we're closing in quickly on half race distance here at Carbondale, which comes at lap 39. And McFadden's pulled out to a near 2.25 second lead over Stevenson and Chastain, who currently battle for the 2nd spot. It's going to be very close between those two to see who's going to be the main challenger to the 98. As Alexander Rowe, he started in this race from the 4th position. He's slowly drifted back a bit and is now under fire from Audrey Ainsack for 9th place.
And you notice there, DJ Curtis, at least for the moment, is outside the top 10, but could very well follow Ainsack back towards it, if not back into it.
Especially if Alexander Rowe keeps falling through the field like he has. But this, like I said earlier, still a very good outing for Seismic Motorsports. They've got all 3 of their trucks in the top 15, which is a marked improvement from where this team was at the start of the year, for sure. But yeah, they've got Rowe in this truck for the remainder of the season. They've got Cal Farrell in the 01 for the remainder of the season. They just want to build some consistency, get some solid results on the board, and get ready for 2026 when they've got one of our current modified Motor Tour stars, Ashton Blevins, sliding into their team for next year.
Yeah, and that's going to be real good for Blevins, but obviously he's still got some work to do to finish out the rest of this season and before moving on to new adventures. I'm noticing that the gap has somewhat stabilized between the 98 and the 6 up front.
Yeah, I'm noticing that a little bit too. They're kind of exchanging fast laps at the moment. The one lap, the 6 will close in by a couple tenths. The next lap, the 98 will just pull that gap back out again. So it's obvious, I think, that the 98 is pacing himself out front to save his truck for if these guys really get to him, and then he can put the afterburners on, because look, he just gained another 10th right there. So if these guys get serious about challenging the 98, as we're past halfway in this race now, I think McFadden's just trying to save enough equipment to really put on a late charge and cement his lead.
That's more than likely what's going to happen. Is he's just saving his stuff. That is the smart thing to do, really, because if you save your stuff and you don't push too hard, let your opponents do the pushing to try to catch you. Because even if they can't catch you, by the time they catch you, there's a good possibility that whatever good is in their trucks will be gone.
Yeah, they may have wasted all their energy trying to get to the leader, and they have nothing left to pass him with. But we're into the second half of this race now very solidly, and the top 10s pretty much is in a really decent gap away from each other. 8 seconds separating the top 10, first through 10th. Villalobos having a bit of a struggle back in the field, but here is the lowest of our playoff challengers, David Wells in this 92. He is currently running in the 20th position. He started this race in 12th, and for this 92, he already entered this race 31 points in the hole. This is really not going to help his bid for a championship.
And right now, he's just holding on about ahead of Ramashko and Turner there, who are in their own little battle, plus one other. But looking at Villalobos, because he's the one who's losing the most right now. You got Petty and Messi right there. You got the four of Carter. You got Rhodes Gray. If they all line up and come up on him as his truck continues to fade, although as you see, Messi decided he's done. He doesn't want to stay behind Petty anymore. He gets if Villalobos gets put to the outside like he has off and on the last 10 laps or so, or 20 laps I should say, he could be in some serious trouble here if these all start lining up like they did earlier.
Absolutely, and look at the move Messi just made on the 9 to try and get that position away. That was a deep lunge into the final corner. But back at the front, the gap has just grown more and more. It's up to 2.8 seconds. And these three are pretty much in their own little battle for the second position. We got one on pit road, and it's the 31 of Charette. We're hearing some sort of mechanical ailment. They're going under the hood to diagnose, but that is a tough break for that team who entered this race 19th in the standings.
Yeah, it's up. Like I said, as a team owner as well as a commentator in this one, it hurts to see, but those things do happen, and looking forward to great things for Charette going forward in the future. But right now, just focus on doing what you can to minimize what can be done to minimize the damage as we continue to watch this battle for second place.
Yeah, Chastain's finally gotten underneath Stevenson here. This is the fight for second spot. But the more they fight each other like this, the more of a gap that Stevenson's going to pull, or that McFadden's going to pull on both of them. Because as they cross the line there, the gap's gone up to 3.1 seconds. So these guys really need to settle this pretty quickly if they're going to have any hope at all of chasing down the 98, which is getting less and less likely with each passing lap as we close in on 30 laps to go, with Blaine Saylor now joining the party. He's battling Farrell once again for fourth.
And you see Chastain in the clear now, finally, right there. Spotter telling him clear. And who knows? Maybe Chastain saved just enough to get by Stevenson and maybe make a charge after the 98. But I got a feeling it might be too little too late. 3.3 second gap.
That is a very big lead, but we'll see if Chastain can do something about it. He's always been sneaky good this season, and we shall see what he can do with this margin. Let's see it at the line here. He took 3/10 out of that lead right there. That is what he needs to keep doing every single lap from here on out if he's going to have any hope of winning this race and taking it from McFadden in the 98. As Villalobos, we're starting to see start to try and make a comeback, but up at the front, Saylor is trying to make a run at Farrell once again for fourth.
Yeah, and you see Chastain lost 2/10, but he did get a little bit of a gap on Stevenson there for a little bit, but I don't think Curtis, is done with him yet.
No, he wants that second place back because that's 5 more points in the championship hunt right there, up for grabs for second position compared to third. And Blaine Saylor's not out of the mix for that, neither is Cal Farrell, and nor is AF Walsh, who's quickly joined the battle for second position. He's charged all the way back up from 6th spot. And that's where he still is right now, but he's in a really good position right here to try and get a top 5 in this race, because Walsh entered this race 16 points below the cut line, or not below the cut line, behind the leader, and he's in a good position to get some solid points, as we can now report that the 31 had too much going on under the hood. They have retired the 31 of Ludovic Charette from this race.
Yeah, heartbreak to see, but like I said, with not being in concern for a playoff for the 31 this year, it's just a matter of packing it up and getting things ready for the next race. But as we look at Chastain, who it's like when Stevenson was in second place, it's stabilized for now.
And I don't know, McFadden's starting to. I think what McFadden's trying to do here he's trying to pace himself not just to maintain the strength of his equipment, but also so he doesn't catch the back of the field and start lapping them. I think that's a strategic move by McFadden to intentionally not go up and lap those cars, because if he does, that could open the door for Chastain, for Stevenson, for Saylor to all close in on him, and that is not what he wants.
Yeah, that's we talked about it, lap traffic. It can mess with you if you're the leader and you got a big lead. It can really mess with you and give your opponents a chance to catch, which we know McFadden does not want.
Yeah, so I think he's just playing it really smart, just trying to not catch those guys, maintain his gap to the back of the field while also maintaining his margin to the battle for second. He's kind of having a really lonely race out there, is John McFadden, but I don't think he's really going to mind that much, especially now that he's put another 3/10 between himself and the one.
Yeah, it's really starting to look a little bit harder and harder as we come up on 20 to go here. It's going to be real hard to see if anybody can do anything with this 98.
It's going to be interesting to see if anyone can pull it off, because while the gap did go down to 3.6 seconds there, that's still a lot of ground to make up in 20 laps. You're going to need a caution at this point in the race to close that gap, and even then, we saw how good McFadden was on the previous restart. What's to say he can't do it again?
Yeah, it would be neat to see, but the thing is, we got to have a restart for that to be a possibility. So, and I know there's a number of drivers who would rather not see a caution. I know one who would, and he's trying to claw his way back in the top 10. That is Villalobos, but we're looking at the main one who does not want to see a caution right now.
Yeah, the 98 of McFadden, he would very much like this race to go green the rest of the way. But, I mean, this race has the look of a long green run after we had that early caution. But you just never know what happens in these things. We could get a late yellow, and it could send this race into a frenzy. You just never know what happens till the checkered flag drops. That's what we love about this stuff. But we're into the final 20 laps now, and McFadden's got the gap pretty much stabilized at about 3.6 to 3.8 seconds now. And Villalobos, I've noticed, he's starting to make a comeback in this race. He's gotten some moves made, and he's gotten himself back up into the 11th position right behind Curtis, as we got a few trucks battling it out back here. Lee Muse has dropped off a little bit, Alexander Rose dropped off a little bit, but that's brought the likes of David Wells into the conversation once again, as well as Jesse Turner making his second career start, and Mitchell Carter, who's on pace for a top 15 today.
Yeah, and Turner, he started 20th. He's just running solidly, getting the experience he needs, and quietly moving forward a little bit at a time. You saw him pass Rose Gray. You're seeing him working on Petty here, so he's having a solid run for only his second start.
And meanwhile, we were talking about Villalobos mounting a comeback. I think his truck is just starting to get the handle on it now that we're into a really long run. And he is going to try and make this move on DJ Curtis to put himself back ahead of the 22 and gaining points on Curtis once again, but also to get himself back into the top 10, a position he's very much used to this season, and I'm sure he'd love to get one here before we go to Michigan next time out, a track where he really likes to race.
Oh, absolutely. As we continue to look back up here, and McFadden just continues to gradually build that lead. He uses a little bit of his stuff, then backs off a little bit, builds his lead up a little more, then backs off. He's doing what he needs to do to protect his lead and protect the potential win, because, well, it's clear that Chastain's not gaining much on him. I mean, he did just gain a couple seconds, tenths a second, but it's, okay, he's gained a little more now, so maybe, just maybe, there's something to be gained here.
Yeah, but the problem he's got is he's running out of time. We've got less than 15 laps to go now. And time is very much running out for Chastain, or anyone else for that matter, to catch John McFadden, who has led every single lap of this race up to this point. He has had a phenomenal race up to this point, but we've got 12 laps to go now, and it's just getting to that point where any caution that comes out would set up a very late race restart.
And, it gets to that point where you have cautions come out, you have less chances. And I know right now, if we were to get a caution right now, it would be a single file restart when we go back green. But give it another handful of laps, a caution would be a race ender, and that could be what McFadden would be that'll be the only kind of caution McFadden wants to see.
Pretty much, because we've got to that point now where any restart would be a single file restart, but we've got 10 laps to go now. The gap stays at about 3.5 seconds. I don't think Chastain or Stevenson, they have enough right now to catch McFadden at the moment, because he is just plugging away at it lap after lap, doing what he needs to do to hang on to this race victory. And we're into the final 10 laps. The gap, well, it's pretty much stayed the same, hasn't it? 3.5 seconds between first and second. So I don't see a lot changing, but speaking of things changing, we've got one off the pace going into the final corner, and it's Jochen Stoyan in the 51. He's going to pull it to pit road. We're hearing a tire's gone down on the 51, and we'll see if he can get back into the race.
Yeah, that's unfortunate for Stoyan. It's going to put him at the finish, so it's just one position above Charette, who is, as we said earlier, out of the race. But it did not cause a caution, which McFadden and Spotter was probably saying he was that Stoyan was on the apron, and he was probably holding his breath until he was told he made it to pit road.
Yeah, so Stoyan will go at least 2 laps down as a result of that pit stop, and that's a big shame because he was on pace for a decent day in that 51. But as they run right now, it continues to be the John McFadden show out front, and we only have single-digit amount of laps remaining. So a caution now would either set up a green-white checkered or a one-lap shootout. It could even end the race altogether, depending on how severe it is.
Yeah, as the laps count down, you know that McFadden is thinking, no caution. Or once it gets to that point, he can say caution will be fine as long as his truck can maintain pace, which it's strong enough to be able to continue to hold station in the lead with a really big gap here. So I don't think he needs to worry too much if he ends up having to pace his way to the checker.
And we're into the final 5 laps now. We're coming to 4 to go this time. I think he's pretty much good to just cruise at like 80% at this point. He doesn't need to rush anything. He can just take it easy, not risk damaging that truck. But for the likes of Stevenson, of Chastain, I think they realize at this point that they're racing for second, as AF Walsh continues to make his charge up to the front. He's knocking on the door of a top 5, battling Cal Farrell for that 5th position, as Villalobos cracks the top 10 once more.
And the way things are looking, it'll be Walsh and Saylor who are going to benefit decently here. They may not be able to jump ahead of Villalobos, but they'll gain a good amount on him by finishing ahead of him.
Especially now that we're into the final 2 laps. McFadden's actually going to be the biggest gainer in this. He's going to close to within a couple points of the 66 by the end of this. As Walsh tries to make a move on Farrell for the 5th position, he should be able to get it coming to the white flag.
And he's not quite clear yet, but I have a feeling he will become the checkered here. As, like I said, coming to the white flag. Yeah, John McFadden, he has been near perfect this entire race. He hasn't really... Okay, I should say he has been perfect. He took the lead really early, and now here he is, getting ready to win, getting ready to take the checkered in our inaugural race here at Carbondale.
It's been absolutely flawless from John McFadden. He'll have led all 78 laps of this race from third on the grid. Very impressive stuff as McFadden powers across the line to win at Carbondale. His second win of the season, the second of his career, and this will really put him right into the thick of the championship hunt because with Villalobos finishing down in 10th place, this will put the 98 just 3 points behind as we head to Michigan.
Yeah, that's a huge thing here. Congratulations, McFadden, that whole team, the whole organization had for putting a lot of effort into ensuring that he has the best chance he can at this championship, especially and that's a really big deal for Mercedes there.
Yeah, and how about the likes of Justin Whitmer? He snuck past Cal Farrell at the last opportunity to get up into 6th spot. That's a big deal for the 91. It'll put him right back into the thick of the hunt. Villalobos, like I said, just barely hanging on to that points lead with 10th place. And Curtis Stevenson, what could have been? He started on pole, but never led the race, finishes third. But he too is in a really good position still in this championship hunt. There's still a lot of contenders, but eventually there can only be one champion, can't there?
Yeah, that's very true. A lot of our contenders are going to gain on Villalobos here. It's not going to be it's not playoff shattering, but it did rattle the cage a bit.
Absolutely, and if you thought this was exciting, wait till you see what we got next week. It is Michigan International Speedway, where these trucks will be going at their absolute fastest. And that is a place where Paul Villalobos really loves to race. He made his Nitro National debut there last year, was running and finished on the podium there, and I would expect him to be a prime contender to get another win and reestablish himself out in the lead of this championship. But with that being said, from James Ellison and from myself as well, thanks for joining us for a great race at Carbondale. We'll see you again next week at Michigan, and until we see you then, congratulations to John McFadden on picking up his second career win and putting himself right back into the hunt for his first championship.